Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Mark with Limo Marketer. So today I've got Ken Lucci with me from Driving Transactions. Thanks for joining me today, Ken.
Oh, thanks for having me, Mark. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no,
Admired your work for a while.
yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. So I've known about you. I've seen you. You've been a speaker at some limo shows. I know we've had kind of a client in common, and
Mhm.
um, I don't know. I saw your name come up on Facebook a week or two ago, and also people in my group were talking about, how much they could sell their limo business for. And I know nothing about this side of the business, but I'm sure, incredibly valuable to have this info, especially if you're getting into the industry or you're looking to exit your business at some point. So I thought you'd be the perfect person to have on for this.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's we've kind of fallen into a niche, if you will. I mean, I started as an operator in seven. Grew the business organically. The first year we did $1 million, and then bought a couple of
Whoa.
companies. Yep,
The first year you did 1 million?
first
That's
year we did a million.
crazy.
That was it was July of 2007 to July of 2008. We did $1 million, and it was in Tampa, Florida. Yeah.
Did you just land sorry to interrupt the story, but did you just land some big contracts or what? Because
It-
that's a huge number in your first year. That's very,
very, very interesting story. A lot of fun, a lot of trial and error. 2007 was well before the digital marketing revolution, right?
yeah.
A lot of knocking on doors, a lot of networking. I will just tell you, it was based on customer service differentiation. Very simple. We operated a fleet of Cadillacs. We drove. We were in black suits and gold ties in Tampa, Florida. People thought I was crazy. People said you'll never get drivers to wear black suits and gold ties. And when we were in the airport, people knew who we were. We had name tags that said Ambassador Limousine on them. The vehicles had a gold ambassador on them. We landed two or three hotel contracts, and that's how we got our start. That was the first year. The second year, and I have to credit the late great Tom Mazza, was a great consultant for me. I brought on Tom as a consultant pretty much when I started the company, and he guided me. And so from seven to eight, we did $1 million. The next year, we were really doing extremely well. And he said, look, you have a couple of choices. You can continue to grow your own fleet and grow organically, or you can acquire a company. And we ended up buying a company called Julie's Limousine. And Julie had passed away. We bought the company off of her dad. After that, we bought a company called All Star. And so we grew the company $1 million on our own. By the time we sold it, I sold it in 2013. We were doing $5 million in total sales. 2012, we did the presidential conventions. I remember driving back from Charlotte, and my accountant called me and said, "Listen, the check cleared. Congratulations, your business is, you've already done 5 million plus this 1.4 million. What are you going to do now?" And I said, "Sell it." And he said, "Well, are you serious?" I said, "Well, what am I going to do? I mean, at the end of the day, I've taken it as far as I think I can take it."
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. And after the fact, I wrote a book on chauffeur transportation. Started teaching chauffeur training around the country, and all of my clients, we share a couple of mutual clients. All of my clients that hired me said, "Ken, I kind of would like some help, financially trying to get the business to the next level, and I want some help buying businesses or positioning my business for sale eventually." So I got certified in Sage Valuation Software, SAGE, and got certified to do business enterprise valuations and fleet valuations in the limousine business. And that was in 18. So all of the other consulting I did kind of fell by the wayside because the phone started ringing.
Yeah.
And, we did our first deals in 18. We've done a total of 23 transactions since 2018, four of the largest involving an outside company, four of the largest in the business. And I think the last time I looked, it was 150 million in total transactions. So,
Interesting.
yep.
So, um,
But like you, I found a niche. I mean,
yeah.
you could be all over the board if you wanted to, but you really have honed in on what you're an expert in. And I think that, that's really what our secret has been. I loved chauffeur training, But at the end of the day, there's such a need on the financial side of the business, and there's such a need on enterprise valuations. We do valuations for divorces, partner breakups, estate planning, bank requirements. Sometimes to renew your loan or credit line, the bank will want you to get a valuation on your business and on your fleet. So that's what we specialize in.
Interesting. So you've obviously, so you started a company, went to a million, then you decided probably the quickest way is through acquisitions, get
Yes.
someone, because is the assumption there because the beginning is always like takes the longest time, or is it because you can find a business that you're like, hey, we could make a few tweaks and it'll just explode, or is it a combination of both? Or
Well, my competitors down there could say a lot about me because I didn't play nice with others, which was probably one of the worst things I did. Is I did not have partners in the local area. I just viewed competitors differently. We nailed customer service. We nailed it. I mean, coming right from the beginning. I'm a student of the Ritz-Carlton Leadership Center. I believe in the Ritz-Carlton mentality. So we nailed it. Once we started to organically grow and we focused on the 25 wealthiest zip codes in the territory and the top 100 largest corporations and the top 20 hotel and resorts, we really answered the need because people felt that the service levels of some of the companies down there were, I call them shorts and flip-flop companies. They would pick people up at the airport in shorts, Hawaiian shirts, and flip-flops. So the organic growth really took off. And then when we had vehicle capacity and we had extra vehicles, the natural thing was to look at buying companies or customer lists. It just so happens the largest competitor, the lady had passed away. The father had tried to run the business for a year, and we ended up buying it. And the second company it was in the middle of the financial crisis, and that company really did a ton of inbound affiliate work. So it changed hands a couple of times, and I think it was the third owner, is the guy I bought it from. So it was a combination of organic growth and then buying and then acquiring companies. And I believe in that kind of a strategy. I believe in a strategy of both.
got it. So Julie's was in the same city, in the same market you were
Yes.
in, so that's why it made a lot of sense.
Yes. Yes, it did.
Got it. So when it comes to, and then, so how'd you get into the financial side then? Because you also wrote the book on chauffeur training. Were you into, you said you're not an accountant, you're not like a CPA or anything, but you just had just a lot of experience looking at the financials of other limo companies, and that's kind of how you got into that side of it? Or
Yeah, it really it was an answering of a need. Most of my clients that I went to do strategic consulting for, and a lot of it was on the customer service side. Some of it was really improving their uh, their reviews, their customer service feedback, doing surveys, doing base training, et cetera, for their chauffeur staff and their reservation staff. But most of them, when they came to me and said, "Look, I've got so and so who's a competitor of mine, and he's interested in getting out of the business." So I always, from a financial perspective, I never focused on my financial statements. I managed my business by the reservation system. And if I had money in the checkbook, I was lucky. So I when I started doing strategic consulting, I said this industry is really strange because no one is talking to me about net profitability. No one is talking to me about gross margins. So I really kind of renewed my finance courses from college. I went back and took a bunch of finance courses from college. And then to be certified on Sage software, you've got to know your way around financial statements. And I hate to say, I'm not doing financial accounting or accounting for the purposes of tax returns is a lot different than doing financial analysis, right?
yeah,
So they just basically put things in big buckets. I don't mean to minimize it, but they put things in buckets. I analyze what those buckets should be. I look at why you're spending this when a competitor across the country that's very not a competitor, but someone similar to you across the country is spending way less.
Yeah.
So it really just it blossomed out of a need. I went back and took all of my micro and macro and economic courses again at school, and my accounting course, and became certified solely in transportation to do valuations. We also were certified to do fleet valuations as well.
Interesting. It's funny, those courses were probably a lot better going back the second time just because you have something, to do with that data. Like you're already involved in a business. And so
Oh, I
probably,
tell people all the time. I was a C student at best in college. I
yeah.
was a C student at best,
Why does it matter?
and then when I went back, I got all A's in my courses. It's I don't know why. I think it's because you're able to take the examples and put them into real life. I
Sure,
mean,
theory versus practice, right? I mean,
right. I mean, to understand the depreciation schedule in this business is critical because you're in a hard asset business, right? You sell your time, you sell your expertise, and there is a capital investment in what you do. But in the limousine industry, the most important thing that operators need to understand is a return on their investment. When they buy a vehicle, how long is it going to take for them to recoup their deposit, or if they pay cash? How long is it going to take them to recuperate that capital? So yeah, I think it meant more to me when I went back, and I think that because I saw so many operators struggling on the financial side, it just seemed to me that pre-pandemic nobody had any cash, and now, I mean, for a variety of reasons, the businesses are all doing well. I think the biggest reason why they're doing well is they're finally priced right. People are finally pricing their trips properly. You're going to see, I preach this in everything I speak about, is 45% gross margins. If you're making 45% gross margins, that means that all of your direct costs, your vehicle costs, your fuel, your insurance, and your driver is costing you about 55 cents out of every dollar in total income. And you're keeping 45 cents out of every dollar to pay all of your non-revenue producing expenses. You're
so
always going to you're always going to be able to make a buck if you do that. But if you start with low prices and you're not able to cover your costs properly and you don't have enough money left over, you're never going to make any money.
so for those that aren't, and I'm not super well versed in this myself, the gross profit, that's after the your profit after cost of goods sold,
Correct.
which in this case is, um does that include all like fuel? It
Yes.
doesn't. Does it include? It doesn't include labor though, right?
It
Or
includes your direct cost of goods. This is the way I describe it. There's many equations that you can look at. And when we look at a business, we do a fleet cost at idle, and then we do a fleet cost in motion. So direct cost of goods is the cost of the vehicle, meaning, let's just say, a loan payment, right?
okay, okay,
It's the hourly wage, the wages of the driver loaded, meaning workers' comp, payroll, etc. So it's the vehicle, it's the labor, it's the fuel, it's maintenance and repair, and it's what's called make ready. Okay. So those expenses, nothing else, those are your direct cost of goods. What does it take you to turn the key and get that guy rolling? The vehicle had to be detailed, it had to be fueled up, it had to be insured, and you had to make your loan payment. So
yeah,
direct cost of goods, you you should be no more than 60 cents of total income. So if you charged $100 for your trip,
yeah.
after all is said and done, it shouldn't cost you more than $60 to do that trip. You have $40 left over to keep for all of your non-revenue expenses,
And
your
what are
dispatching.
those? What are those non? Because I'm trying to compare this to my agency life, and
Sure.
like it's cost of goods sold, like media purchase, things like that for my clients.
In your case, exactly. It's
It's
the cost.
completely
It's
different, I'm guessing, than for this industry.
exactly. So your non-revenue producing expenses are what I call G&A. general and administrative expenses. It's
Uh,
your rent, it's your utilities, it's your general liability insurance. It's everything that's not revenue producing. It's the reservation person, it's the dispatcher, it's not revenue producing. Whatever it is in your office is
oh,
that's
even the
not producing
dispatcher.
revenue.
So the goods, if you think cost of goods sold, the good is like anything that's
It's the
involved
trip.
in delivering the service, right?
It's the trip.
So the
It's the
chauffeur's hours, the
correct.
vehicle, fuel, all
Correct.
that.
Correct. And
Huh.
as a general rule, from what I've seen, and this is after looking at 200 sets of financials, the best operating companies are between 55% and 60% direct cost. And that leaves you 40 to 45%. And it's called gross profit margin. Some people call it net contribution to overhead. So, meaning how much money do you have left over to pay the overhead, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Okay.
when we help people do their budgets, we can either do them from income down, which is what did you do for total income last year? And then we look at all of your costs and we look at what your net ordinary income was. Or if you're a newer company, I do what's called zero-based budgeting from the cost structure up. So if you're a one car operator and that car costs you $1,000 a month and you're the driver and you
Yeah.
want to pay yourself another $4,000 a month, your cost basis is $5,000. So you structure your cost. You can do it's called zero-based budgeting up, but that's for small companies that are relatively new. But if
Yeah.
you if you give me your financial statements from last year, the year before, et cetera, then I'm going to do from a cost budget cost. I'm sorry, your total income down. And a
Okay.
lot of what we do is budgeting. So,
What do you find are some of the biggest mistakes you see from and I'm sure it's not just small operators that do this. You've probably seen larger businesses where it's just kind of a mess.
mhm.
Um and and the reason this is important, knowing this stuff, is so that you kind of have benchmarks, right? You've seen over 200 companies like financials. And so it's having an idea of, okay, that 55 to 60% number is really important. So if someone's spending 65 to 70% on that, they might be breaking even or maybe even losing money and not even knowing it. Is that?
No, there's no question. The biggest mistakes I've seen pre-pandemic, because of course, when we value companies, we're going back a total of 5 years, 17 through year to date 2022. The
Yeah.
biggest mistake we saw pre-pandemic is everybody's prices were too low. We see almost across the board, we see companies that were not showing any net profits. They were operating at a loss. Their cost of goods sold was hovering about 70% of total income. So let's think about this. If 70 cents out of every buck is going to pay the direct cost of goods, the labor, the driver, the fuel, the maintenance, etc.,
Yeah.
you only got 30 cents left over to pay everybody else and to make a profit. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But here's the good news. It's a mathematic equation. All you got to do is go up 10% or go down 10%. You figured it out. So
Yeah.
in the case of the pandemic, if you look at the pandemic and the good news of the pandemic for our industry, is it forced a lot of people to go way up in their pricing, but it also forced them to right size their businesses. They had no choice. They had to lay off people. They had to go remote worker. I was talking to an operator at noon today who said the best thing that they did was to let their entire call center go remote control, remote worker. They have less sick days. They have nobody calling in sick. People are working from home. If they're able to cover a lot more because even if they are sick, people will pick up a shift 4 hours because they don't have to travel. So the pandemic was awful for the world and awful for our industry, but there were some silver linings that came out of it. You have less people competing on price. You have more people that are smart and they're doing dynamic pricing. They're doing pricing structures. I don't think it was a grand design. I think they all went up on their prices because they didn't have enough drivers and they had to pay drivers more. So I applaud it. And I said something to an operator today. I said, do you feel that your customers are giving you any pushback? They said, no. All they have to do is turn on the news to know that
Yeah.
everything costs more. So my best operators, and I deal with global networks that do, a tremendous amount of business. And my most of my clients are regionals, they're $3 to $5 million operators. I have some smaller operators, but every one of them has gone up on their pricing, I would say on average 25 to 30%. So when you look at that, even now, you listen, you still have to pay. Your drivers are making more money than they've ever made before.
Yeah.
Your fuel is way up. Your insurance is up. So your cost of goods expenses are very difficult to cut. But what all of these businesses have done is they've cut their general and administrative. They don't have as many reservations.
Mm.
They don't have as many dispatchers. They're all working like dogs, by the way.
Yeah.
So because we've gone way up on our pricing structure, our cost of goods now are in line, right? Because
Yeah.
we went up 20%, it makes our cost of goods structure look lower. So the mistakes I've seen people make is number one, they were not charging enough. Number two, they were not basing their prices based on their cost structure. They were basing it on what their competitor was charging.
That's probably super common though, right? I mean,
Very much so.
how many of these businesses are actually doing the math? And if they're, let's say you're one of your reservationists, oh, I think they'll do it if we come down a little on price. Okay, yeah, not realizing if we do it at that price, we literally will break, we're not going to make anything from that.
Correct.
And it's not like they're Amazon where you can do that because you've got all this funding, outside funding, and you can just
No,
eliminate all your competition. You have to be profitable, right?
no,
Um,
no, it's true. And in this case, in the case of post-pandemic, you are actually better off leaving the vehicle sitting in your yard than doing it at a loss. Because if you let your lowest price customers go, because 50% of our competitors are gone, or 50% of the operators are gone. In certain parts of the country, it's worse. In certain parts of the country, it's not as bad. But we can all agree that the fleet capacity is way down. The number of drivers is way down. So if you lose your lowest price customer, the customer that was the lowest ball, always low ball, always, and they were bad payers on
yeah,
top of it,
yeah.
chances are there's going to be somebody that's willing to that's going to take that vehicle at the same time. So yeah, the second mistake I see people make is they don't keep monthly financial statements. Their entire financial process is giving their bank statements to their accountant at the end of the year to do taxes. That unfortunately, I can't help somebody like that. Even if they are I've seen companies that are due $2, 3, $4 million a year, and they don't run their business off of monthly financials. They use QuickBooks, but they really don't analyze the numbers. They just enter in their payables, they enter in their receivables, but they don't run their business with any semblance of financial analysis.
How do you
And that
catch anything, right? Sorry to interrupt, but how do you catch like when something's up? I don't know much about this, but I have an accountant who each month who sends me, these
right,
things, and I can kind of tell month to month, if something's way off.
right.
How do they find
They
that
don't.
out?
They don't. I mean, listen. When I speak at the chauffeur driven shows and the NLA shows, I say to them, you can plan your profits because if you know last year's cost structure and you have kept it in QuickBooks if I can get the data, the only missing equation is the top line income number. Everything else, you know how much you pay your staff, you know historically what all your costs have been. And that's
Yeah.
why when we do budgets and forecasts, especially when we sell companies, we come in within 3 to 5%. I mean, at any given time, we have a sale going on right now. They say, what's December going to look like? I said, okay, well, they're running 121% of where they were in 19. We have them budgeted for December at 111% of 19. They're going to come in at 5.2 million. So running your business by through financial statements rather than your reservation system. It gives you granular data and allows you to plan your life better. Okay. Now, the end of this year, everybody's making money. So they're scrambling. If they don't have their financials right, they're going to have a terrible time with their CPA when their CPA says, hey, you owe X amount of dollars in taxes. Okay.
Yeah.
My dad had a saying. My father's an entrepreneur, and his saying was, "You make your money in the first 6 months of the year, and then you spend it, you bury it in the last 6 months of the year." In our
I
industry,
like that.
right? In our industry, it's actually you make your money in the first 9 months, right? And you get rid of the profits in the last quarter, right? You make your decisions for the next year and what you typically would need to buy. I have a great client who just is renovating their entire office building. They're doing leasehold improvements so that they can suppress their profits. Completely legal and completely advisable.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's the biggest. Those are the biggest mistakes I see. People were not priced right. They still aren't, and there's
Yeah.
no science behind their pricing, and they're also not managing their business financially. Some people say to me, well, I'm only a 3 to 5 car operator. I don't need to keep financial statements. And my answer, I always say to them, do you want to get to 10? I mean, what's your goal? I mean,
Yeah.
if your goal is to have a lifestyle business and just pocket money, you don't need a guy like me. But if you ever want to sell your business, I don't care whether you're running 2 cars, 10 or 20 cars. You should have your financial accounting processes and your financial analysis down. When it's funny, I finished in DC. I did a presentation on Monday morning, and a lot of people came up to me after the fact, and they said to me, "Geez, uh, I'm 175% of where I was in 19, or I'm 120% of where I was in 19." And then I come to an operator who's been in business for 30 years. And he said to me, I'm 70% of where I was in 19, but I'm making 18% net ordinary income. And I said, that's the answer. Think
Yeah.
about that. That guy is doing 30% less trips, but he's making more money. He's
Yeah.
making more money. And
So
that's the name of the game.
yeah, and I've always, I read there's a great book, 80/20 Sales and Marketing. It's all about the power law.
Yep.
How typically 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. And if
Yes.
you focus on those, where typically 80% of the problems come from 20% of the customers, right? So
Yep.
doubling down on those customers that can pay, the big money, and yeah, kind of getting rid of those ones that are like hassles, that pay late, that are
Right.
always
And
kind of,
right, Mark, and hiring a guy like you to grow your business in the right direction. Okay. So Jack Welch had it, by the way, I'm a big Jack Welch fan. Jack Welch had a saying, and he said, look, businesses that actually do budgets and have goals and objectives every single year are worth twice what companies are that just respond to the marketplace. Okay. So if all you're doing is answering the phone and willy-nilly taking the jobs that come in, and you're not planning your profits, and you don't have a goals and objectives, okay, your business is really never going to be worth much. I mean, the I don't care whether you have 1 car or 20. You should have an exit strategy,
yeah,
whether it's to sell to another driver or whether it's to sell your company to a bigger competitor or somebody who's coming into the region. And people ask me all the time, what makes companies sell? And I say, number one, it's very simple: financial statements and profit.
yeah,
Financial statements that show profitability. Well, I make a lot of money in cash. Terrific. There's nothing I can do for you.
yeah,
I'm glad you make a lot of money in cash. That's wonderful. I'm happy that you do that. But provable profits on well-kept financial statements is what sells companies. And we've sold 23 of them, for the largest deals that have been done in the business since 18. And I don't take that lightly. I view it as my last act, meaning I'm 57. I'm going to turn 58 in March. I'm planning on retiring at 62. I'd like to. Maybe I'll stay longer. Who knows? But when I sold my company, I thought I was done with the limousine industry.
yeah.
Thankfully so on certain days. But I think that this is my last act is to assist buyers whether their exit strategy is this year or 5 years from now. The longer the better, because to get your company on the right growth trajectory, and to get it from an operational and financial perspective efficient. Um,
Yeah.
we sit down and we did a calculation. We do a calculation for our clients. How much do you think it costs you to take a reservation? What if I told you it costs, on average, the average company costs $11.88 to take a reservation? Ken, how the hell can that be? Simple. Add up all your reservations
Yeah.
salaries,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? All your reservation salaries, all your overnight call labor, right? Your reservations labor, and divide it by the number of reservations. Now, that's a back of the napkin way to do it.
But
Okay.
that will give you somewhat of an answer. Yeah.
Right. So when people say to me, well, how can I change that? Well, how did the airlines change it? Okay. The airlines didn't just overnight adopt the online travel agents. Okay. They conditioned their clients. The first thing you do is get your vanilla, what I call your vanilla ice cream reservations online. Okay. I mean, if
Yeah.
you've done business with me once, you know where my house is and you know that I go to the airport. So you should get all those bookings online. Uh, I'm
Yeah.
a big, I'm a big fan of what you do in your landing pages. I think that there's some good software out there that help with the online ordering process. But
For
guys,
first time customers. Yeah. For repeat customers, you don't want to have, if possible, them calling in or, doing lots of
well,
back and forth, right?
you don't. And I mean, I've been a big advocate for years of online chat and text messaging. I mean,
Yeah.
if Mark, pick me up tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, take me to Tampa Airport. Okay. Well, the other thing is, hey, Ken, it's less than 12 hours notice. I'll do this for you this time, but do me a favor. Could you give me you know, book your ride when you book your airline ticket?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's an interesting business. I wish we were further along than we are on technology, which is another complete discussion. Um,
Me
but
too.
I saw something the other day that really bothered me, and that's somebody who got into the business over the last couple of years, who said, "I'm disappointed that when I learned how much these businesses are worth to sell."
I think I saw that. We might have seen the same thing. I think that was in my group, and that kind of prompted me to contact you. Um, yeah, this could be a 5 hour conversation, by the way. I have so many questions for you, but yeah, how do you, because I was thinking, there's things like the financials is one that might be the biggest piece. Maybe that's 95% of it, but there's probably like customer list? Is it like the brand you have built up if you've been in a city a long time, also who you're selling to, right? Is it mostly to other operators they're selling to, other transportation businesses? It's not like private equity or anything, right?
Well,
Buying these.
that's the misnomer. Uh, I can tell you that there are very few unicorns in this industry that would be attracted to private equity. Those are those are 1 out of 1,000 transactions.
Yeah.
Most of the time, an operator is going to sell to another operator, or an operator is going to sell to an entrepreneur who wants to get into the industry. They may have businesses that have synergies. For example,
Yeah.
they may have a wedding venue. Perfect.
Yes.
They may own a small hotel or a bunch of hotels. They may just think that it's exciting to own a limousine company. So you have entrepreneurs that look at the space, but most of the time, 8 out of 10 times, it's another operator. To answer your question, what sells companies? Number one is the financials and profitability. Okay. And there's a whole series of things that goes along with that. Number two, you've got to be on Google page one. You absolutely have to be on Google page one. That's the new Main Street. I don't have to tell you that.
Yeah.
You have to have good search engine optimization. You have to have a really good website with an e-commerce tool, right? It
Yeah.
just can't be a postcard. So
Yeah.
you've got to be on Google page one, and you really have to, your site has to be an e-commerce site. You have to be able to generate business from your website.
Sure.
You should be number one, two, or three in your marketplace. And people will get scared because they say to me, oh, well, I'm in Los Angeles. I can't be number one, two, or three. You know what? You can damn sure be number one in 10 zip codes. I can sell
Yeah.
a company all day long that's number one in 10 zip codes, or they're number one among the top 10 employers, or they're number one in the hotel space with DMCs, et cetera. So you've got to be number one, two, or three at what the best at what you do. Okay.
Yeah.
And in most markets, even a small company like I started from scratch, I made more mistakes than I did things right. Okay, in the beginning, but at the end of the day, if your customer service is good and you become very well known in a small area, your company is very sellable. So
Yeah.
it's financials, it's get on Google page one, it's
Yeah.
build a decent website. That's the best investment that they can make. I would rather have somebody driving a 3-year-old SUV and be on Google page one than
Yeah.
driving $108,000 Escalade and nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
I know
I have that.
that's preaching to the choir, but
Well, yeah, no, I have that discussion all the time. Get a website built, and which is good. You want to have a website, but just because you build it doesn't mean anyone will come, right?
traffic, traffic, traffic. You've got to
Yeah.
demonstrate traffic. There's some great software packages that are out there as far as booking tools are concerned, but traffic on the website, be well known in your zip codes, give give phenomenal service, and
Yeah.
have great online reviews.
That's
Those are
huge. Yeah,
those
the
are the
online
things that
reviews.
sell companies. And is it difficult to sell a company that's less than 5 years old? A little bit, okay. But
Yeah.
if I was giving anybody some advice, number one, you should have an exit strategy. I don't care if you're 30 years old, you should plan an exit strategy. Hopefully, it's a lot of years from now. Along the way, you should be making enough money to pull money off the table so that you have other places to invest money into. You have the best operators I know own their own real estate, or they run their business out of their house and the business pays their mortgage and their houses have great equity. Okay. So most people are not going to become millionaires from the limousine industry unless you really, really grow. And I trust me, I've done business with a lot of millionaires in this business,
Yeah.
but most of the time they're making enough money, their financials are great, they're pulling money off the table, and they're funding other things, whether their other
Yeah.
things are Airbnb, whether they're, as I say, they live in a great house and their business, they run their business out of their house and they've doubled down on their paying their mortgage. Their wife is on the payroll. That's
Yeah.
basically the business has got to make money and it's got to be an avenue for personal wealth. You're never going to there's no huge pot of gold at the end here. Okay.
Yeah.
But they're very sellable, um, based on what we've talked about, the financial statements being number one, two, three in your market, and having traffic on your website, being able to demonstrate that people can book online with you and that you're actually in demand.
Yeah.
Um, and listen, we've been very successful. We can sell about 8 out of the 10 that come to us. The ones that we can't sell are the ones where they can't produce decent financial statements. They've never made a profit. Um,
Yeah.
you know, and I think we're in the great market. I think we're in the great market because the pricing is finally, to me, people are finally pricing their trips where they should be making money. And I mean, I was on the phone today with one of the largest globals out there. And again, I said, are your clients pushing back? And they said, no, they completely understand. This is inflation. This is insurance. This is fuel. We have to charge what we charge. And frankly, we're doing about 30% less trips, but we're making a lot more money. There's no harm in that. There's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
that. They're able to pay their affiliates better. They're able to, this particular pays their affiliates very well. I know most of my regional clients, their financials look fantastic. Their growth is great. It's the next generation that's coming into the business that I would like to focus a little bit more on financial management. And again, I don't care if you're a two-car operator, you should be doing monthly financial statements.
Yeah.
You should be making a lot of money and growing your business. You've got to be able to continually grow the business profitably. So that's it.
Yeah. And what we were discussing earlier, I think that would be very helpful. Having some sort of material or something, some sort of instructional. You mentioned like, is it some videos or possibly some sort of material showing newer operators, hey, this is kind of how you want to position yourself, and then just kind of having a goal. It's funny. Whenever I'm talking to an operator, seeing if we're a good fit, I always ask them, what's your goal in 1 year? What's your goal in 5 years? And it's always the ones that have definite, this is where I want to be. Those are always my most, there's no
No
magic
question.
about, no question. Yeah.
No
If
question.
they're just saying, oh, I'm looking for market, I'm not really sure. I'm trying to, get more leads, grow my business. Well, if you have a goal, like your chance of getting there are so much greater. And I'm sure, yeah.
No question. And I always say this, I say this to Chris Weiss all the time. I said, where I've settled as my niche is not necessarily a sexy topic, but to me, it's the most important topic in the industry because there are so few financially astute people. And you do not need to have listen, the kid I have working for me has the master's degree in finance. He's the one that makes our stuff look fantastic. I mean, when we're presenting to sellers, excuse me, we're presenting sellers to buyers. Buyers always say to me, your packages and your information is better than I've ever seen. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's what we do. But to me, the course we've got coming out is basically Limo Financials 101 is what
Yeah.
every operator, frankly, it's what every employee should know about the business as well. I mean, I can tell you right now, detailing and make ready and all of those supplies is 1% to 2% of total annual income. Fleet maintenance and fleet repair is shared 2% to 3% each. You should be running 4 to 6% regular maintenance and repair. That's your tires, that's your oil, that's your fan belts, that's everything, and your regular repairs. If you're running more, you're probably running an older fleet or something's wrong, right? Your insurance should be running somewhere between 6 and 8%. You should always be trying to get into a captive insurance program. The only way to do that is with zero loss runs, very well managed insurance. Captive insurance is 3 to 5% of total income, whereas regular insurance is 6 to 8. And I have clients that are in trouble that have let their loss runs and their accidents get out of hand that are in bad shape, 9 to 11% of total income. Your total labor, okay, depending upon where you are in the country, your driver labor, what we call loaded, is somewhere between 23 and 27%. And if you're higher, I want to know why. I drilled down the other day with an operator. I found out with an operator that they have a specific shuttle contract. This is not even a huge operator. They have a specific shuttle contract that the general manager is paying 30 hours a week in overtime. Well, they completely sunk the profit of that shuttle contract because they're not constantly recruiting drivers. And this is another thing that's changed post pandemic. You've got to constantly be recruiting drivers, constant, 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 constant. So in this particular case, we said, okay, this one contract is ruining your profitability, in this silo. So I can tell you all of these expenses. And the funny thing is when we start working with operators and we get them to take the financial analysis seriously, and every month we're updating it, they're the ones coming to me and saying, Ken, my fuel is off this month because we prepaid the fuel, or there's a billing difference. They're coming to me now that they're managing their business on a granular financial level. They're coming to me and they're saying, okay, this is why this is like this. But it also helps for planning. Small companies, the owner says to me, I really got to stop working weekends, Ken. This is killing me. I'm like, no kidding. You have to have a life. So
Yeah.
why don't we look at the financial impact of you hiring somebody for the weekend to manage the phones for you? What
Yeah.
would this cost? Okay. So, it's not sexy. Trust me, $108,000 Escalade on Facebook. Now that's sexy. Okay. And it is sexy. It's sexy
Yeah.
stuff. Okay. But I love people. I look, we manage people's excuse me, we pull reports from people's reservation systems all the time, and I'm happy to say, okay, last year you did 150,000 in October. This year you did 170,000. But here's the best part: you did 170,000 this year doing 13% less trips. So you made a lot more money. You did a lot less trips. You have a lot more revenue on the books. And by the way, your sedan trips are up 18%. Excuse me, you're 18% up on your revenue. You're 27% down on your trips. You're making more money now than you ever did. So when you start managing the business financially, you get a taste of it. And to me, it's the second half of going up on your prices, because you see the benefit of going up on your
Yeah.
prices.
The why, right?
You exactly right. So, and in that case, now you have breathing room, because they look at a guy like you and they say, geez, this guy's going to charge me a little bit for his expertise. How am I going to afford that? The answer is to go up on your prices, to charge what you should be charging. You
Yeah.
know, um, I had a guy, and I know you have to go, but I looked on
Oh, no,
Facebook.
no, we're good. Yeah, no, we're good.
I looked on the other day on Facebook, and this guy bought a Sprinter. I forget where he was from, and he said, "Hey, I need some help pricing this in the marketplace. I need some help. What should I be charging an hour?" And I didn't say anything, because that's not what I do. Okay, but my answer would be, "What's your cost structure?"
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like
Now
only
that
you can tell us that, right?
right. I mean, and he said my competitor is charging such and such. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is, what is your cost structure? So in that case, you take somebody and you almost do a zero-based budget. You bring it literally from what are your base expenses of the business, and what did you just take on for expenses with that vehicle, right? And now, so this is what your latitude is, and
Yeah.
it's you know, so you know, I think what we do adds value. I'm a little hoping that the course that we're putting on Teachables gains some traction, where on the Teachables platform, which will, it'll be a landing page on our website. We're going to be doing some no cost tutorials as well. How do you price a new vehicle class? I mean, if you make the leap and you buy a minibus, how do you price it? Well, the answer is not, well, my five competitors are charging this much an hour. No, that's not the case. That's not what you want to do. What you want to do is you want to start with your cost basis, and you want to look in and calculate what your gross profit margin should be on that unit. So, uh,
Yeah. So, in thinking about this, and see, you see it from one side, I see it kind of from the other side, from the sales and marketing side. And I get it. Like these guys, well, my competitor charges this much. And what they're assuming is a complete commoditization, right? Like it's
yep.
100%, or I forget the technical term, but like pure competition, right? Essentially, you're
Mhm.
buying the same product. And so, yeah, what I talk about a lot to my clients is, perceived value. Like, what are your online reviews like? How are you handling the customer? What's your customer service like? If you're just, you know, sending a price and that's it. All other things considered, most people are going to choose the lowest price. If they think they're getting, okay, they're all quoting me, getting me from point A to point B, they're going to pick the lowest price. And that's the difficulty. And I'm not sure if I have the answer, because I know, you can't price too low. Otherwise you don't make anything, right? You can't come up with your pricing based on what your competitors are charging. But maybe the answer is you just need to run your business as efficiently as possible,
No
right?
question. And listen, what your competitors charge is important in several different ways, but it's way down the list. Okay. Now, I did a lot of research on consumer behavior. Okay. 11% of consumers make their decisions solely on low price.
Yeah.
11%. Now,
Very small
that's
percentage.
that's not the client I want.
No.
Okay. Now, 8% of people in corporate America make their pricing, their buying decisions based solely on price. And that's when they consider you a commodity.
Yeah.
But when they value what you do, like hotel stay, okay, like, you and I could go on a road trip and we could decide to stay in Motel 6, right? I haven't done
Yeah.
that shit. I haven't done that shit since college.
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't go on the road if that's what I had to do. Now, corporate America chooses to stay at Marriott's or Hilton's, and the management and executives choose a certain level. Okay. It's
Yeah.
called the differences between price and value. So, yes, you should know what your competitors are charging. But unless you have a list of 10 reasons why you're higher priced and why you're better, you are a commodity, right?
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
are a commodity. And the other thing we talk about when we talk about how companies have value is if you're priced at or better yet above the market, your company will sell all day long. I will be able to sell your company if you are priced above the market. If you're priced below the market, and you're doing 10 times more trips for 30% less money, I can't sell you. Now,
Yeah.
buyers were different, right? Buyers would say, I just want to take that customer list off the market. Okay, I can tell you right now, having dealt with pretty much every decent buyer in the country and talked to all of them, they're all interested in what's the pricing. Give me the top 50 city pairs. And that's how I want to compete. That's how I want to know whether I'm going to buy that company. I can get
Sorry, what is that again? The top 50 city.
pairs, the top 50 trips that they do. That's the easiest way to look
Oh,
at it.
okay.
The
Okay.
top 50, give me the top 50 most frequent destination prices. And I'm going to make sure that they're at or above my pricing. Okay. Meaning at or below my pricing because at or above, because they don't want to take on a customer list that is used to paying, peanuts.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and and that is definitely post pandemic. That's a buyer right across the board, a buyer requirement. Show me the pricing structure, and if it's a low ball pricing, they're not gonna buy it. And that's unfortunately, I see too many people selling themselves too short as far as their trip. My customers are going to leave me if I go up 10%. No, they're not. They're just going to be, all you have to do is say, look at my gas prices, look at my labor prices, look at the inflation of pretty much everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that is, again, that's one of the silver linings of this pandemic is it caused the businesses to take a hard look at their pricing structure. And the biggest driver was they couldn't get drivers to come back to work. So I have to go up on my driver pay rate. Therefore, I have to go up on my hourly. But I think
Yeah.
in general, I think people are where they're pricing more towards value now. And I hope that that doesn't change.
Yeah. Definitely. Huh. That's fascinating. Yeah, there's so much that really goes into goes into this. And yeah, I've got it's from what I've heard from a few of the business I used to talk a lot with one business consultant in the industry, and I heard what do you see? What should you expect as your like net profit margin? What is like typical? Would you say in the industry? Because I've heard it's like
Sure.
10%, Um,
Good question. So it comes down to the following equation. For 100% of your income, you take 100% of what you do, whether it's by day, by week, by month, by year, 100% of the income of what you do. You're in good shape if you spend less than 60 cents, 60% to do the work, gives you 40 to 45% left over. You're going to usually spend somewhere between 20 to 25% on other expenses. You should be paying yourself 10%, and you should be showing a net profit of somewhere between 10 to 15%. Ordinary income. Okay, now we're not talking about paying taxes here. We're not talking about paying taxes on 10 to 15% a year. All I'm saying is at the end of doing all of your trips and paying all of your expenses, your operation should generate 15% net ordinary income. Then you're going to have money to do things. You're going to buy equipment. You're going to, increase. You're going to increase your business in several different ways. Uh, in other words, you're going to lower your taxable income. But
yeah,
the
yeah.
the income from all of your operation, the best I've ever seen is 22%. 22% net ordinary income. Now,
That's
that,
incredible for
that's the
this.
best I've ever seen. Now, most are running between 8 and 12%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Now,
that's after paying themselves
right. But
or
think about
whatever.
it. Think about it. And if you follow that breakdown, if you follow the breakdown and you start with tracking your cost of goods, it right then and there, you know whether you're in good shape. Because if you've got 40 to 45% left over,
Yeah.
then you're going to be able to determine how much you're going to pay all of your other expenses and how much you should be paying yourself. I'm a huge advocate of, even if it's an LLC, I'm a huge advocate of the owner taking W-2 income. Huge. Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take W-2 income, you're not feeding your Social Security, you're not feeding your own, you're not feeding your own unemployment, because if we ever have a COVID again, you
Yeah.
have to have an unemployment account. But your Social Security and W-2 income is an expense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't even
Versus
realize I'm sorry to interrupt. I didn't even realize I thought you had to, like, for instance, my business is an S Corp. I'm an employee. And so I'm
Mhm.
paying myself a W-2 income.
Right.
I didn't even realize there. I thought you had to do that. I
No,
didn't.
no. In an LLC, if you a lot of these companies are LLCs, and
Yeah.
you can file in an LLC. You can file either as a partnership or you can file as an S corp. If you file as an S corp, you have the benefit of being able to take W-2 income. If you file an LLC as a partnership, okay, you typically cannot. It depends on the state, but
Oh,
so that's the key.
interesting.
But there's a lot of benefits to taking a base W-2 income, and then basically you can take quarterly distributions. But if you're not keeping monthly financial statements and you're not keeping track of your depreciation of your fleet,
Yeah.
you're going to be surprised at the end of the year where you're going to have to write a tremendous check for
Yeah.
taxable income.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But as far as, what I do, I can tell you that the biggest mistakes I see people making is running their businesses based on their reservation system only, not knowing their true cost structure. They're not able to pay themselves well. They're not able to pay their drivers well. I see people making mistakes of doing 1099 drivers in when they should clearly be doing W-2
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
drivers.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you that if you're doing a 1099, that driver should have his own corporation. That driver should be free to do business with whoever he wants to. But
Yeah.
but again, uh, at the end of the day, if you want your business to be sellable, you've got to run it like a company. You
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
run it like a lifestyle.
Or cut corners or, yeah, do things that might be a little shady, like the 1099 thing. They should probably have their own vehicle, their own
Right.
business,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And listen, there's benefits to both models. If you're going to have a 1099 employees, excuse me, if you're going to have 1099 drivers, they should have their own corporation. Frankly, you should be paying the corporation. You should not be paying Mark Petrie. You should be paying MPLLC, right?
Yeah.
They should be driving their own piece of equipment. They should not be driving your equipment. But when we walk into companies, we see all kinds of things going on. And
I'm sure.
yeah. But I enjoy it. It's a fascinating time in the industry. My biggest fear is that people will drop prices. My biggest fear is that there'll be too many unprofessional people that'll get into the industry. They'll throw up a website. They'll lowball price their vehicle, and they think they're going to be competing with Uber and Lyft. Let me tell you something. We've survived Uber and Lyft. I mean, the
Yeah,
business,
yeah.
that's there's a level of people. There's, just as though there are restaurants that are, 5-star restaurants with white tablecloth, there always will be. And fast food was invented 50 years ago. So to me, Uber and Lyft is the fast food of the industry. They've killed the taxi side of the business, but our side of the business has done well, and I would argue that we should be doing much better now because we can afford to pay our drivers more because we are charging more money for our service. So
Yeah. And I've actually noticed, if anything, Uber and Lyft isn't as good
no,
today as it was
no,
5, 6, 7 years ago when they had all of this, because they've been running at a loss for so long and they've just
yeah.
had all this money, right? So
Uber just paid $1.4 billion for Drizzly, which is Drizly. That is the platform that allows you to order booze online and have it delivered to your house.
interesting.
Uber is if you read Uber's K1s, which I do notoriously, because as a limo operator, I didn't have time to read anything. Never mind, I could read a manifest and a reservation schedule in my dispatch screen. I didn't have time to do anything else. Now
Yeah.
all I do is read and research. Uber's K1 is all about delivery, 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 delivery. That's their platform. Okay, that's their future. When it
Yeah.
talks about Uber Passenger, it is part of their platform, but all of their investment is in Uber Freight, Uber Autonomous, and Drizzly. So at the end of the day, I think the chauffeur space is going to exist for a long time. I think there's
Yeah.
good growth in it. The motor coach industry has been turned on its ass because of the pandemic. A lot of over 1,900 motor coach carriers, and about
Wow.
half the oh yeah, there used to be 3,600 motor coach carriers in the country. Now there's 1,700.
Wow. But I would think, I mean, especially now that we're so far, and that was the last part of the industry to recover, right? Is the big motor coaches. But
Still recovering. Yeah.
yeah, I would think there for those 1,700 companies you said or so that are
Mm-hmm.
still around, I would
Mm-hmm.
think that would almost be a good thing for them.
They're
So
slamming. Yep.
still recovering, you're saying. So it's
They
still
they
not
are.
back to previous.
They are. They're still recovering, and what I see is I see the mentality of the old line bus companies is archaic. Um, I think that one thing that we've done as the chauffeur space is we've elevated the level of service so that when people call in for a motor coach, they're not talking to Joe the dispatcher, the bus dispatcher. They're speaking to a true reservationist. I believe that it's easier for us as an industry to go up into that space than it
Yeah.
is the bus guys. The one section of that industry that is really in bad shape, a lot of the old line tour operators have gotten out of the business. They just closed up shop. They always made money on their tours. They made a tremendous amount of money on their tours. But coming out of the pandemic, they just found it was too slow to come back. And frankly, they just didn't want to deal with it anymore. So there's a tremendous opportunity in our space to step up into touring, to step up into experiences, to capture school team contracts, to capture all of that business. It's one thing about a field trip. It happens every year in February. It
Yeah.
happens every year in April. So I do think that it's all in all, it's a good time to be in the industry. It's also a good time to sell because revenue is like this
Yeah.
and profits are like this. So, it's a good time to consider positioning your company, whether it's to sell today or whether it's to sell over the next couple of years.
Nice. Okay. Well, for those watching that are looking to do that, where can they find out more about you or get in touch with you?
Drivingtransactions.com, right behind me. Get
Oh,
out of the way.
nice.
Yeah, drivingtransactions.com is the best. Just visit the website. That's the best way. And I'll tell you, the misnomer about this is every company I've ever walked into, big or small, is not in the condition to sell. It requires positioning, conditioning, and then finally presenting for sale. The
Yeah.
conditioning and positioning of business can take from 60 days to 6 months, depending upon the metrics, the financial metrics. Some it takes a little bit longer to get the company in financial shape. But I always like to say what we do positions you to buy a company, to sell a company, or to borrow. If you want to stay in the business, everything we do helps to present you to a bank, to a traditional lender. And we kind of know the secrets of what they look for and the different ratios that they look for. And we get you into shape to do that. And my best customers tell me, listen, I'd like to get out of the business sometime over the next year or two. That's terrific. I've got plenty of time to do it. The worst customer is the one that says, they call me in October saying I need to be out by the end of the year. Those are tough.
Okay, so that's really good to know. So even if you're not, or even better, if you're not looking to sell in like 3 months, you want to have probably a year, 2 years, or even just getting your financials together. Do you do just consulting for businesses that want to understand their financial statements a little better?
Absolutely, selectively, and that's why we're coming out with the course. The course is going to be available on our. We're going to advertise it in the industry, but you can either buy it alone to give it to your bookkeeper, or you can buy it with a set of hours, our time, and we'll
Yeah.
help you get your financials into shape. But for the first time, I got a call today from a client who said, "My bank recommended you." I said, "Your bank?" And they said, "Yeah, the bank found you. They want me to tailor my financial statements so that there are metrics that they can look at because we're growing the business exponentially." So I was
Yeah.
happy about that. So yeah,
Nice. Well, this is awesome, Ken. There's so much we went over, but probably so much more we could go over. Maybe we'll do another one of
absolutely.
these at some point and dig down into some of these concepts here. But thanks so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. And anytime you need me, Mark, and I'll tell you, there are very few guys in your space that I admire. I admire what you do, and you do a great job at it. And I'm telling the audience that based on my clients telling me you do a good job. So
Yeah, I
keep up the great
appreciate
work.
that. Awesome. Thanks,
All right,
Ken.
Mark, take care.
All right.